This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online platform that helps you find a therapist that will match your needs. BetterHelp offers live video chats, open discussion, conversations with real therapists in real time if that's what you need. I personally love it and have used it now for almost 2 years. I would really recommend, if you need someone to talk to that is not in your family or your friend circle, that you reach out to betterhelp.com and you will receive 10% off if you use my code BGP. So again, that's betterhelp.com/BGP to find the right online counselor for you. Hi, welcome to Big Girl Pants Podcast, where we talk about health, wellness, careers, parenting, relationships, and everything in between. I am your host, April Melton. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to Big Girl Pants Podcast. Today we have Miriam Whitfield. And what is your title? Like, what are you?
So I have a master's.
Who are you? What are you?
I have a master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. And
human nutrition versus like animal nutrition, insect nutrition.
Strictly human nutrition.
Strictly.
I have a bachelor's in nutrition, as well as prior to that, I was a pre-med student. So my major years and years ago was biology.
Okay.
But my goals of becoming a doctor, I kind of sabotaged those when I was really young, unknowingly, and I never ended up going to medical school. I'd gone through a pretty serious divorce and had to go to work. So
damn those jobs. I know. Getting in the way.
Right.
And bills.
So yeah, and at the time I was a full-time student and a mother. So my son was really little when I was in my third year of undergrad as a pre-med student. Yeah. And my son was born, and I would take him with me every day to the lab. I worked in the dermatology department in the lab and take him every day to school with me. But his father left me when he was about 15 months old. Yeah. And him being the primary caregiver left me pretty much on the street.
He just left you?
Well, so there's a backstory to that, too.
I was about to say, did he go out for a pack of cigarettes and he just didn't come back or what? Hey, I'm going to go buy some milk.
So that was what I used to study, was biology. And then as the years went on, joined the military and had a lot of injuries and things that I just could not figure out why they would not heal, why I couldn't get better. And I kind of have a defiant spirit when the doctor says, well, if you don't stop running, you're going to end up in a wheelchair at 50. I'm like, no, I'm not, but I'm going to figure out why. Yeah. What's truly going on in my body. Right. And that set me in motion to go into nutrition.
Interesting.
And so that's how my journey, and now I'm currently in my second year of the doctoral program of clinical nutrition. And, a lot of people ask, well, why didn't you go the research route? Why did you go the clinical route? And I have a true passion for working with people. Yeah. If I spend 4 years working in a lab with rats and mice, I feel like I'm not going to get the clinical experience of that face-to-face with the person. And that's really where my research needs to be, is working with people. And getting that clinical experience, because we now understand how personalized medicine it should be. And I don't think
medicine and nutrition and diet and how it's holistic. It's all involved.
And it's personalized. Right. It's not one diet fits all. Right. Or this diet is better than this diet. It's what's going to work for you and figuring that out. So that's kind of in a big nutshell, how I got into nutrition. But it's my own infertility, my own injuries, and the pain. And I lost my thyroid. Or my thyroid, I guess what they told me, burnt out. So why? How can I fix this? Can I make it better? So all of those questions have propelled me down in this journey. And it's been hard, but it's worth I love sitting there and just learning every day about something new, or a new case study comes out and this person had really severe autoantibodies to thyroid, let's say thyroid, their thyroid is eating... Their thyroid is basically very, they have Hashimoto's. Yeah. So hypothyroid. Yeah. So anyway, it's been fascinating to learn all this stuff along the way and help people. Sure. So
I'm so pumped to have you here. You have no idea. I'm so excited.
It's great to be here.
I know, because you follow me. We follow each other on social media, and like I know you see all of the food that I post, and you're like, Jesus Christ, girl, what are you eating over there?
No,
you're like,
I never.
All you eat is meat.
I never think that
on?
though, and that's one of the things that I think sets me apart from so many is just because somebody's following a diet, there's absolutely no judgment out of me. There's a reason why you decided to pick this one and try to see if it works for you. But I also do know that there's a lot of influences with social media. And when you have like 100 people saying, hey, this diet worked for me, you're going to get a ton of other people that are going to do the same thing.
Of course.
But what they don't typically tell you is how many people sustain this diet
for how long?
For life.
Right.
For life.
Right.
Right. These are habits.
Yes.
So if you just follow a strict diet,
right,
but you haven't created the habits to help you after you come off this diet, you haven't really gotten anything from those 16 weeks except more pain and frustration.
Yeah.
So my thing is how do I So how do I teach you to sustain that these are the things that are going to fuel your body, and as long as every single time you pick a food that it is as nutrient dense as possible.
Yeah.
If you're always thinking, is this fueling my brain? Is this fueling my heart? Is this fueling my movement? Allowing my body to produce the energy, giving you enough energy when you do have a virus that your immune system now goes into overdrive. Are you able to supply the nutrients that are needed for that process to work? Then you're winning. And that's what I like to teach now is how do I help you change habits to sustain, because I don't want you working with me for the rest of your life or dependent on me.
Right.
I want you to be able to do this once we no longer have a client relationship.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh. You're going to be so good. I'm so excited. I hope 40,000 people listen to this podcast.
Oh my God.
You're like, oh my God, I hope not. Really, though, she was a little bit nervous before, and I was like, don't worry, you're going to be a natural, which is already so obvious. Like, oh, I'm so pumped. There's so many questions I have. Okay, so clinical nutrition. So you were in the military for a little while. Like you said, you struggled a little bit with infertility with your second baby?
So actually, no, I never could, after my son was born.
Yeah.
Like that was pre my fitness years. Oh. So I got into fitness.
How old were you when he was born? You were
20. Let's see. He was born in 98.
Young.
Yeah. 20. I was 21 when he was born.
Got it.
Okay, I can take this back a little bit further. So, because this is going to end up tying into maybe where some of my eating disorders came from.
Oh my God, I had eating disorders too.
Yes. Severe.
The worst.
Being in the body, so I was in the bodybuilding world first started off as a bodybuilding competitor and then moved into the figure category because I was just not one of those athletes that wanted to be on any PEDs.
Yeah, which is performance enhancing drugs, which is
like steroids,
what
anabolic
most people call
hormones.
Steroids. Yeah.
Yes. And so I just realized that was not ever anything that I wanted to participate in.
Same.
And I had a natural ability to be really strong.
Yeah, same.
I could get under and my repping was 155 on bench press. Like that's strong
impressive.
I was. So
I don't even think I ever hit 135.
Yes, I was a beast when it came to the gym, and it was all natural strength.
Right.
And I can remember when I had my coach at the time, Keith Williams, when he first took me under his wing to train me for my first show, I started gaining weight when he started training me, and I gained like 20 pounds in 6 months. Mm-hmm. But I had gotten so strong in that short amount of time, I just realized that I had a natural athletic ability that I was really strong.
Sure.
And people in the gym started to, they saw that and they started encouraging me, you should compete. So anyway, once you get on stage, okay, the first one I won my show, but I was the only one in my class, right? So now you go to the next one and then you end up getting last place because I'm nowhere near as big.
You're like, damn, this is a mind fuck if there was ever one. Great, now.
So then, okay, what's the next thing? So then the figure category was something I felt like I had the amount of muscle.
Yep.
But then
which in these, for people who are listening who don't know bodybuilding, these are different categories. So now they have bikini, wellness, figure, and bodybuilding, right? For women?
Women's physique. And then bodybuilding. Yes.
So that's, what is that, five
categories.
5 categories. So again, for those who are listening, bikini is like a little bit of a leaner build.
Swimwear.
Yeah, like you look really good in a bathing suit. You have nice shoulders, you have nice legs, you have nice glutes. But I don't think you want like shredded or visible abs.
Right.
Like you want to be lean enough to where you can't see any fat on your body. But then you move into wellness or figure, where wellness is a little more developed lower half, but still about the same as bikini on top. And then figure is more
rounded shoulders, V-taper, quad separation, glute and hamstring tie-in.
Where you see more muscular women.
Yes.
And then they move to physique, which is again more, and then bodybuilding, which is like the
heavier.
ultimate. Yeah.
Yes. So I ended up getting into that athletic world, and I think I competed like 6 or 7 years in a row. During that time, I'd also gone to Iraq, so I was in the Iraqi war in 2005 when it was pretty much in the heat of the war, in the middle of the war. But I still competed over there. Like that was one of the things they did for all the soldiers for morale, was host a bodybuilding competition. And
that's cool.
Of course, there was nobody there that could match me. And so that the second one that they had, they asked me to guest pose, and I ended up being a guest poser instead. And I ended up, my second deployment was to Kuwait during the drawdown. And then I decided to get out and then go into work as a contractor. So I ended up going back to Kuwait for 4 years, lived in the Middle East working, and then came home. And that's when I really started to pursue the pathway of nutrition. Yeah. And it is because I started working with Paige Hathaway in 2014. Yeah. So prior to all of these years competing before, whoever was working with me really lacked the knowledge on how to feed my body. Yeah. So there was years I had what's called RED-S. It's relative energy deficiency in sports. Okay. So you're exercising so much and you're not eating near enough for your body to, have for the energy. Sure. And I'm doing it off of pure adrenaline. Like I just was caffeinated.
So your hormones were just all over the place.
Yes. Thyroid was super low.
Your cortisol's high. Adrenaline's
very high. I had no sex drive, absolutely no libido.
Yeah. Did you have your period?
No. So I didn't have a period for over 3 years. Wow. So I had secondary amenorrhea.
Like in the bodybuilding community, like, it's almost like a badge of honor for a woman to lose her period. Like, I got so lean, I lost my period. Like, that's not normal. No. And this is not good for us. Right. Especially in our fertile years. Yeah. Like, what?
But especially because we can't stand it, right? And even in the military, we actually were recommended to take the depot shot so that we didn't have it, because we are out in these environments where you really don't, there's no showers.
You can't change a tampon in the field. Like,
yeah. So during that time, that was the time where I didn't have it at all. So I was like, oh,
that's cool.
Great. I didn't have to.
Awesome.
It worked great for me. But little did I know that the nutrient deficiencies that I had during that time was causing my body to pull calcium from my bones. Right. So I ended up at the, very young age, I think 36 or 37, being told that my bones looked like that of a 70-year-old. So that's how much calcium had been pulled out of my bones from just all this exercising. I would probably be in the gym like 2-3 hours a day. Yeah. And then I had to do so much cardio on top of that because, like I said, the person I was working with didn't truly understand how nutrition affected my body. Yeah. So I was really depleted. No fats for days and days. I lived on, when I was
protein, carbs.
Protein, and actually carbs was 1 day a week. It was protein and vegetables for 6 days a week to try to get my body fat down so low.
And extra lean protein, like chicken and fish.
And no fats.
Maybe turkey.
Like my fats were non-existent.
So no wonder your hormones were all over the place. And for those who are listening too, I was thinking about this on the way over here. So when we say things like protein, carbs, fats, it just makes me think of Mean Girls. So like, is butter a carb? So butter is not a carb. Butter is a fat. But there's a lot of people who are listening. And of course, you coming as a nutritionist, like a lot of people don't even know
what that
what's
means.
A protein, what's a carb, what's a fat, like, and so for some examples, like a protein is going to be, and I think that not everybody struggles with the protein side of it, but maybe carbs and fats, like what that could be decided as, like, is an avocado a fat or a carb because it's a fat, but it also has carbs in it, like, but yeah, so for some examples of protein, like steak, fish, turkey, chicken, eggs, those are all going to go into the protein category. As far as fats, like that's your oils,
nuts, seeds, because it's really high in fat.
Exactly.
So it might have some carbs and it has some protein, but the highest content is as a fat.
And then your carbs are going to be, you know, your potatoes, your starches, your pastas, your rice,
even your vegetables. Even your fruits are carbs, just
simple carbs like sugar.
Right.
Yeah, but they also have fiber, so it's different than like, you know, a Pop-Tart.
Oh, yes.
Fruit is going to be your body's going to react completely separate to fruit versus like a Pop-Tart or candy or whatever.
Right. And that's where I talk about nutrition density versus calorie density.
Right.
And a lot of people can get tied up with what should my macros be. But if you're selecting foods that are very high in nutrient density, you're automatically having lower calories in that meal.
Yeah.
So what, you know, if you think of things like B12, the only place B12 is found in is meat.
Right.
But good quality, it's always better to, if you can, to choose the good quality meat, because along with B12, you might have animal meats that are high in omega-3, like let's say bison or grass-fed cows, right? So they're getting that omega source, and they have a little bit higher in omega-3. So that's where I'm talking about like high nutrient density.
Yeah.
A lot of your vegetables, your fruits are very high in nutrient density. They're also high in fiber. So you're feeding the bacteria in your gut, you know, those short chain fatty acids that they need.
Yeah.
So yes, nutrient density over calorie density.
Yeah.
And if, you know, I know that can be a confusing term. So calorie density just means that there's a lot of calories in this meal.
Right.
So let's say macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
It's a lot of calories in that meal, but there's not that much when it comes to B vitamins, vitamin C.
I mean, vitamins, nutrients, minerals.
Right. So vitamins, and that's where I talk about that. That means nutrient density.
Yeah.
What can be the most nutrient-dense meal of that night, or wherever you go out to a restaurant or whatever meal you're trying to cook for the family.
Yeah.
How do I give them the most nutrients? Because we know nutrients feed all of these processes in our body.
Yeah.
And our mental health is, I think, the most underrated and most important. So
and it's funny because we can use me as an example. So like, and we'll get back to your story. I don't want to derail from that, but like last night, you know, we're at Great Wolf Lodge and we're having fun for my niece's birthday or whatever. So we ordered pizza. Ugh, I feel terrible today. Like I woke up, my face is so puffy. It's like super bloated. I'm probably like 5 pounds heavier, like all these things. And I'm like, man, the worst part about the whole thing. And like this morning, I just fasted, and I want to talk about that too, but I just fasted. I had black coffee this morning. I'm having a protein shake right now just so that I'm not like starving through this, because that's the other bad side effect is when you eat bad foods, your body goes into like, well, I'm still looking and searching for those minerals and those nutrients.
That's right.
So like, even though you had 2,000 calories worth of pizza last night, I'm still trying to get some like some good dietary stuff for me. So I'm still going to pretend like I'm hungry. Even though I'm not looking for that surplus of calories, I'm looking for those nutrients. But typically those nutrients are attached to the good foods, the nutrient-dense foods. Right. But yeah, I feel like shit today. And I have crazy brain fog. So I stopped at like Vitamin Shop. I got an Alpha Brain packet. I got water. I got my protein shake. And like I'll probably fast until dinner because it's like, you know, I feel like she's 5 years old, my niece, but I feel like it's like a sorority girls like birthday party weekend. Like we're doing the whole thing. I'm like, oh my gosh. But we're supposed to have dinner tonight. So I'll probably just fast all day. But I do want to go back to your story. So when you were in the military and you were training and you realized that all this calcium is being leached from your bones.
Yes.
What did you do and how did you figure that out?
I actually stopped running. I was trying to train for a marathon at the time, and I was running really long runs, and my hips just kept hurting. They just hurt, but I would just push through pain, you know, because that's what we're taught. You're taught to believe.
We're gonna be tough.
Yes.
Ignore those signs from your body. Why would you trust your body?
And I really believed it, of course. Obviously, now I look back and I say that my body was telling me something for a reason, but I didn't know. Right. And the orthopedic doctor that the military had me see, he didn't tell me any of that either. He just, but you need to stop running, because he saw how the bones in my feet looked like that of a 70-year-old woman. So once I got out of the military, and I actually started working with Paige when I was contracting in Kuwait, and I realized like she was so knowledgeable with nutrition, and she really understood my body, and my body was just transforming in ways I had never seen it in all like the last decade that I'd worked so hard to build muscle. I was way under my genetic potential. I had a lot more. And working with her just made me become more and more passionate to study nutrition now, and how can I help more women, because I suffered for a really long time. And to this day I still have chronic pain from that, but it would probably be a ton worse if I didn't have the knowledge that I have and how to feed my body and make sure I'm getting enough calcium, but all the other vitamins and minerals that help
everything, every process.
Anxiety, depression, a lot of these mental health disorders that are becoming more prevalent today. I had very extreme cases of anxiety when I came back from my combat tour, and just understanding how to feed the brain itself has been really helpful.
Huge. And that's like the one thing. Okay, so you start training with Paige, and then you're like, okay, I need to get into this, and I want to learn more. Because again, like I said, like you're a forever student. I can tell. Like we're like on the same page with that. And I'm the same way. Like I continually want to learn. Like when the orthopedic doctor told you need to stop running, like I would have been like, why? But why? Like, explain to me why. Like, I understand that there's damage and you can see that here, but like, why is that happening? Because there's people that run until they're 90. I want to be like those people. Right? Like, I want my body to be functioning forever. I don't ever want to be in a wheelchair and not, if there's an accident or something that's different, but like not by my own demise, right? Like I want to take care of my body forever, and I want to, and for me, the biggest driver too, and you having children, like I want to be the best example that I can be for them. And show them, hey, it's okay to have pizza sometimes, but also we need to make sure that the majority of our diet comes from really good food. And if you don't feel good, like my daughter, she's so good about it. Well, she's being so silly right now. She was putting on her swimsuit this morning. She was like, Mom, my stomach is really like hard. Like it's really tough. Like I think I have some abs. I was like, oh my gosh, do you have abs? But she's like, when she eats sweet stuff, she'll just say, I'm sugared. I'm too sugared. Like I don't want any more of that cookie. Like she'll have a bite or she'll try it. And I'm like, God, I wish I was blessed with that. Like, cause she'll just be like, no, I'm good. I don't want any more. Meanwhile, I'm over here like shoving every cookie in my face. Like, but yeah. So, I wanted to show her, like, be the best example for her and eat things that are good for me and that feel good to eat. But like, I tried, which is another reason why I wanted you to come on the podcast, because I tried the carnivore diet for like 3 years. And it's like you said, there's so many influencers online. There's so many influencers on Instagram and Facebook and whatever. And there's groups of people that are talking about all that stuff. But my thing is, and the reason why I wanted to pick your brain, and this is for, everybody who's listening too, because I feel like there's so many other things, not necessarily that I was missing out on, but like signs that my body was giving me where I wasn't running optimally. So like I was eating, I started in September of 2018, and I started with just eating meat and dairy. Like I would have meat and some cheese, and I wouldn't really have yogurt, but I would have meat, eggs. So like beef, bacon, cheese, and I think eggs and something else. And then that was okay, but I didn't really lose any weight, and I didn't see any of the progress that everybody had boasted about, so I was like, okay. So then January rolls around in 2019, and it's like World Carnivore Month, so all you eat is beef, salt, water. So I tried that for 30 days, which was awesome. Here's what sucked: sleep. I couldn't sleep for shit. Like every night, clockwork, midnight to 4, I was up. And it was because, and I had talked to a lot of people about it, but some people tried to tell me you need to stop doing so much cardio. Some people told me you need to supplement with glycine or magnesium at night or whatever. And I tried those things, and I was still waking up. And I just got to the point where I had just lived with it, or I would just take melatonin to go back to sleep or whatever, which I've never struggled with sleep. my whole life, my mom was like, yeah, you could fall asleep. Like one time with my dad, I fell asleep at NASCAR. Like I was so tired. I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's so loud. It didn't matter. I could fall asleep. But when I noticed that because I don't drink alcohol anymore, I don't really use any substances or anything that would impair my, my thinking or thought process. So I was like, okay, there's got to be something wrong, right? To where like I can't sleep. And I basically like, cortisol and adrenaline. I'm just still
always high.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm just like running on, pure E85 and just never stops. Like, so, I did it on and off. There was times where my energy levels would just drop so low because I was training and I was still doing cardio and lifting weights, 5-6 days a week, that, I would just crash, right? And I would just completely go off the rails and cheat and just eat all the bad food that I hadn't let myself have. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I had an eating disorder from the time I was like 14. I just wanted to be skinny like all my friends, which is so weird because I played football. Like I was lifting weights and working out with men. And like, I really should have been focused on like nourishing my body and trying to fuel this system that I had, fuel this machine. But I was so concerned because I just wanted to be like skinny, like the cheerleaders. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do.
Me too.
Yeah. Don't we all? Like shit. I just want to be waif thin, like forever. But now it's funny because like thick bodies are in, so I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in style now. Now I'm like 90s, do not come back because I do not have time for you.
And all those years we got teased. Well, I got teased so bad
for the booty,
for my thighs,
my thighs. Oh God, the chafing's terrible.
Yes,
the holes in your pants because your fucking thighs rubbed together.
But then you realize that's actually been to your advantage when you are in the weightlifting world.
Oh my gosh.
The way that you can build your lower body compared to someone who has to work so much harder to build, like it's to our advantage. Yeah. And we're good at those power sports.
I know. And like I played soccer my whole life, and then I played football. And then once I got that introduction to lifting weights, which was it was so sad that I resorted to an eating disorder because God, it's like you said, I didn't even tap into my true potential. I could have just been unstoppable, but there was also no nutrition training. I didn't know shit. You know what I mean? And I came from a very, a Southern household where my mom, gravy on everything, calorie. Yes. And she's like, fuel your body because you need to, you're playing sports. Like, and my days were so busy. There would be days where she would pick me up from football practice after school. I would eat like a full meal of like pork chops, mashed potatoes, corn, bread, whatever. And then I would go and do marching band practice after that for like 2 more hours. I never really gained weight, but like, let's just say that I wasn't losing any weight.
Yeah.
I was like maintaining, and I was probably a little bit overweight, but I've always been someone who's been overweight on the BMI scale. I think my body fat percentage is probably like 30% right now. And I don't know that I've ever got it down to a good level, which is like, I guess 20% for women, in between 18 and 20%. I'm assuming that's a good level.
18 to 21.
Okay.
Yeah. 20 up to 25, I think.
Okay. And I've never been there, but I've also never been truly consistent with my nutrition the way, which is so funny that you're here today. I'm telling you, the universe works in amazing ways. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Because I found this girl, and her name is like Rachel, something I can't remember, on Instagram. And her husband cooks for her because she has PCOS.
Yes.
So the account is called Meals She Eats, and he just shows all these recipes that he makes for her based on the cycle that she's in, like the phase that she's in her cycle in the month, right? So like you have your menstrual phase, that's when you're bleeding, you have your follicular phase, your ovulation phase, and then your luteal phase.
Yes.
And based on the phases that you're in for your period, he makes her certain recipes with certain foods, different vegetables, fruits, proteins, and grains. And it's crazy. But I've only been doing it for a week, and I had pizza last night, so let's be serious. But like outside of that, I felt really, really good. Ironically enough, I started last Friday, and I'll send you the thing that I'm following or whatever, which I was so intrigued. I was like, because it's so weird. My husband and I had talked about this probably a year ago because I started introducing carbs again, but then I just felt so bogged down, right? Like I was like, oh, I just feel so not bloated, but like I just feel so heavy. You know the difference between when you feel heavy and when you feel light.
Yes.
You're like, oh, I just feel so light, like spring. Like I just feel so good inside. My insides felt good, so my outsides felt good, and I felt really heavy. And I was like, you know what's funny? I feel like I should do keto half of the month, and then I should eat carbs half of the month, because I feel like there's certain times where I feel like I need the energy, or when I need higher fat because my body is just feeling different. So I found this, and there was like 5 different books, and I had the guy on who wrote the book about birth control and what birth control can do to your body and all of that. So I really started paying attention to that. And Matt and I are trying to get pregnant. So I'm paying attention to my hormones and my body and how I feel. You know, do I gain weight? Do I lose weight? Whatever. Do I put my body under this stress because I'm trying to get pregnant? All these things. And really just like trying to find something that's going to work for me long term, like for the duration of my life. Like I want to eat sustainably to where it's, you know, like.
Yes.
Because
and
I feel
especially
like,
if you're starting to think about pregnancy, like you need to have pre-baseline levels that are at optimum.
Right.
Yeah.
And
optimum health.
I haven't had a kid in like 8 years. So like, how do I know where I'm at? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for any woman that's out there that's struggling with this, like fertility, like, and not just fertility, but like knowing, because they don't teach us any of this shit.
They don't. And I think they've really failed our school system. They failed our kids in the school system. If we can teach our children at the young age, the problem is even the parents don't know this information.
Right.
Eating, the reason why family disease exists is because the same way of cultural eating exists from one generation to the next. So that's right. So a lot of people will blame it on, well, it runs in my family. But if you can break that cycle of actually educating yourself on how to feed your body, then you can stop it at that generation. Yeah. To say, this is what's going on.
And what is it, like 90% of disease that we have is like lifestyle disease, especially like type 2 diabetes. And people don't like to hear that.
No.
But I basically.
It is the truth.
Exactly. And I, like, after I had Chloe, I basically gave myself pre-diabetes. Just because I was eating so shittily. Like I was just eating so terribly. And I mean, I had a conversation with Josh. I had Josh on not that long ago, Josh Thomas. He's a trainer too. And he used to be like really big into bodybuilding. Like he was probably 100 pounds heavier than he is now. So now he's trying to find the same thing for men, right? Like how to really optimize your hormones as a man, how to kind of taper off of some of those exogenous hormones or steroids or, you know, anabolics or whatever you want to call them. But I had this conversation with him. He was like, do you emotionally eat? I was like, fuck yeah, I've been doing it forever. Like, I don't know how else am I supposed to cope with my emotions? And that's a joke, but like, I don't use alcohol or anything else. And the rate that we use food to soothe is like alarmingly high, but also we can't not eat, right? And these drugs are on every corner. Like it's in every pharmacy or every gas station or every a Krispy Kreme donut store. Like that's a personal favorite of mine. Yeah. Terrible personal favorite, but whatever. Crumble cookies. Like, you know, it's everywhere. Yes. And then we're just like, oh, why do I feel like shit? Oh, probably because I've been eating like shit, you know?
So when I work with clients, one of the first things that I think we need to always think about is, how did we get here in the first place? We know it's emotional eating, but how did that ever start in your life? Because most children have an innate, their body's ability to tell them, hey, you're full, stop eating. Yeah. Right? Something happened, whether it's in our teenage years, insecurities, parents maybe not. I mean, for my own parents, I never got hugged and kissed ever, told I loved you. I never had that affection from them. So part of mine could have been how I ended up with these eating disorders. Yeah. So that's really the first place that I like to start with is, okay, yes, we know that you have this goal of wanting to lose weight, but let's first talk about how we got here in the first place, and can we identify that? So when that trigger comes up, that we have listed some alternative methods instead of going to the food. What else can we work on to get to? And then having a sense of self-worth. Yeah. Right. A lot of us, I think, based on however your childhood was, many people that I run into in my experience have a lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
Well, I don't deserve this because I binged yesterday anyway, so I don't deserve it.
Right.
Or, for whatever reason. Trauma from your past carries into your future unless you can identify and identify and then figure out, how can I change my subconscious? All those years of all your life, they're in your subconscious. You don't even realize it.
It's so hard to erase those tapes.
And it's painful to confront it. So the pain often prevents us from wanting to actually have that conversation.
Well, it's a lot easier to just self-soothe with some donuts.
It is. But then now you have all the other frustrations that come with it. So I realize mental health is such a big part of this picture. And this is why I like with integrative health, the way that I look at the person as a whole is spirit, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, all of that plays a role in your food selection.
Yeah.
And how can we get you to recognize when that trigger happens for you?
Yeah.
And then write down your affirmations or however you're turning the negative thought into something that's positive. How can we get you then to eventually becomes just subconscious? Now it's a part of you. You have a lot of self-worth, and just because you had a rough day, you're not going to allow that to keep going into the next day and the next day. And you're able to turn it off and then turn on the self-worth button and say, let's do this.
I bet your clients love you.
I hope so.
You're like, I hope they do.
Because I love them.
Yeah. Because they're great.
Yeah. And the more you talk about this, just like me talking to you.
Yeah.
And you maybe encouraging other women.
Yeah.
That just empowers you even more.
Yeah.
It just keeps that fire burning. And I think that's why I've been a trainer since 2006.
Yeah.
So I've been in that exercise world for many, many years. And then once I started.
It's so much deeper.
It is. It is deeper. And that's where I have to go with them. Let's go there. It's almost like you're become a mental or like not a counselor, but you're like their life coach.
Right.
So because we got to identify what's causing us from progressing and making the next goal happen.
Right.
Before we can even get to that goal.
Yeah.
And
that was my issue when I decided I want to train for a bodybuilding competition. I want to do this. I want to do that. Sure. It was a lofty goal at first, but if you don't, it's kind of like that thing on Instagram that everybody reposts all the time. You can work out and you can meditate, but if you don't fix that shit in your head, you're never gonna be healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was me trying to compete for a bodybuilding competition or something like that. I really did not understand how much of a trigger that was going to be. I mean, ever since I've been on a diet, I remember taking Slim Fast to middle school. I've been on a diet since I was 12.
Can you recall back then any comments or things that you heard to make you uncomfortable about your weight?
I don't know. I was always hit on at a really young age because I developed very early. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, I don't think a lot of people called me fat. I think it was just internal. I think I was just...
Did people around you talk about the women on TV or social media about how beautiful they were?
No, but I was never that pretty girl. Everybody was always like, oh, she's so pretty or she's so pretty. But I was never that pretty one. But of course, they're not going to just be like,
yes.
Hey, you're pretty.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah.
So we kind of take on some of that ourselves and don't even realize that we have taken that on in our subconscious and we don't really recognize that could be what it's from.
Yeah.
So now it's reaffirming to yourself, and however you do that, saying it out loud, writing it. I like to recommend writing it in a journal because you're getting it out and then you can recite it from the journal.
Right.
Of, that you're beautiful just the way you are.
Yeah.
And you are, by the way, you're stunning.
Thank you.
The very first time I met you, I saw you. I was like, wow, she's beautiful.
Thank you.
So you were that girl on TV.
So are you. God, every time I see you, I'm just like, oh my God, her body is so good.
Thank you.
I'm like, this damn 30% body fat is ridiculous.
But, that's been a journey of learning, figuring out, because I counted calories and macros for years and years and years.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is I've tried every effing diet there's out there. I've tried Weight Watchers. I've tried Slim Fast. I've tried carnivore. I've tried being a vegan. I've tried macros. I've tried everything. And it all stems back to, and I think that maybe you and I should work together, because I think that you have a competitive advantage over some other, like if I don't specialize or talk to someone who specializes in like
athletics or sports,
yeah,
bodybuilding,
or even just like the mentality behind it, you know, like I don't think they're going to fully understand. Like I told my therapist after my dad died, I had a therapist for probably all of last year. So from May to December. And I told her, I was like, I keep binging on candy. And she's like, well, what if you give yourself like 3 pieces? I was like, I don't think you understand. Like, I'll eat the whole damn bag. And she's like, all right, so maybe you give yourself 5 pieces. I'm like, no, I don't think you understand.
None. You can't.
No.
You're like an all or nothing person.
I'm an abstainer.
Yes.
But the problem with abstaining is if you abstain for so long, then you just like face plant. But whatever. I didn't want to turn this into a therapy session, but I do want to relate to women who struggle with this, because I talk to them a lot, often. And there's a lot of women that ask me like on social media. And I mean, the reason why I started my podcast and why I started like my training page, my Instagram, is because I wanted to help women who struggled, because I struggled. Like I was 250 pounds and it was not fun. And I was still working out. Like I was working out every day, even in my fat suit. Like I was still going to the gym, and it didn't matter, because you can work out all day long, but if you don't fix what you're eating, like your body's not going to change.
Yes. And I'm 1 out of 11. I have my sister's.
11?
Yes, I am 1 out of 11.
Oh my gosh.
But my sister, Ruth, that you met, she struggles as well with the same thing. And in the gym, she's a beast.
Right.
But once you get back and she understands why. But now it's okay. When those triggers happen, now you have to actually practice these things in order for it to change.
Yeah.
And so it's a very common struggle.
Yeah.
My clients, I think for majority of people, there's very few people out there like us that can take it and just follow it to the T 100% as long as we're told to. Right. It's a very, very tough thing to do.
It's like when it's written down in a plan, like this thing, I'll find it while I'm talking. But when it's written down in a plan and I can just see it, I can follow it for the rest of my life. Yes. And I'm fine. And everything is great. Yes. But if I derail from the plan, or if I don't have a plan. So this is the phases, right? So like I have it all in like a spreadsheet or like a graph, right? And if I have the graph and I say, oh, I'm in this phase of my period, so this is what I have to eat. If I have that stuff, like that type of structure, it's great. Yeah. Or if I have something to plan for, right? Like vacation or something like this. Like I have a goal. I don't do well without goals. I can't. My husband, oh my God, he doesn't need shit. He can just be like, yes, I'm having a very lean ground beef and rice for the rest of my life. That's what I'm eating for the rest of my life.
There's not as much emotional attachment to food.
No.
That's my father too.
Yeah, he has none. Yes. Yeah, he feels nothing. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, don't get it twisted. We can't bring peanut butter in the house because he'll eat it all. But that's not from emotion. He's just like, well, peanut butter's good, so I'm just gonna eat the whole jar. Yeah. But yeah, like I really struggle with that. And then I find women who message me and they're like, I just don't feel motivated. Which I was really glad that I ate pizza last night before you came on, because I wanted to kind of bring that, I feel like, shit energy into this conversation, because I know so many people start out their day like that. Like they eat bad the night before, or they just don't know where to start. So they wake up and they're in that cloudy mental space every day. So you go through life feeling like, where's the motivation? Where's the drive? Whereas I've been in a place before where, let's say I completed a fast of like 48 hours, a water fast or an electrolyte fast or whatever. And I feel like prime human, where I've never felt that good before. Some people have never felt that feeling ever. Yes. They feel like me, the way I feel this morning, every single day.
Every day. But you know what? They feel that, but they think it's normal because it has become their new normal. Right. They have forgotten what it truly feels like to feel good and energized, and you feel light, you're not as heavy in your stomach. And if you think about it, anytime you're putting a lot of calories into your stomach, right now your stomach has to work to break down that food. And if there's a lot more in there, eating pizza than there is in all your other normal meals,
Your
stomach is going to be working for a little while to get that food out of the stomach and into the
if you're doing
intestine.
that 3 times a day, your stomach is just in overdrive all the time.
And
our mental health is so attached to our stomach. It's like our gut is like our second brain.
That's actually the description that they use. And I've heard a lot.
Key.
Yes, there's the gut-brain axis. So whatever's in our gut or we put into our bodies, our brain is going to be affected by it, obviously.
Yeah.
So nutrient density, are you getting the B vitamins and the different minerals, magnesium that our brain needs to, produce its own hormones and neurotransmitters? All that matters.
Yeah.
So and when you do eat that way, those foods are very high in fiber, right? So it's way more satisfying and
satiating. I pooped like a champ all week.
And that's the other part about it. I think it's a kind of a uncomfortable conversation to have with clients.
Right.
But I'm going to be asking you how your poop looks like.
Tell me what your bowel movements are like. Dude, I swear this is so gross, and I don't even care because YOLO. I pooped like the longest poop I've ever pooped last week after I ate wild rice and I had wild rice, cod, and kale for dinner.
Kale, good.
Dude, it was like this long.
So you got the whole grain, the wild rice, the fiber and the vitamins from that, and the kale, obviously. Excellent source of folic acid.
Yeah.
But that's the way it should be.
See, but and the crazy thing is on the carnivore diet, I never pooped. And they were like, well, maybe they were like, well, maybe your body is just using all the meat or it's just utilizing it all and you don't really have a lot of waste in that diet. And I was like, well, maybe, but also I like to do that. So I don't think it's good if I'm never doing that. I mean, it would be like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, that's not good.
Right.
Yeah, so your body was absolutely missing that fiber that it was so used to receiving.
Right.
And, you weren't supplementing with the probiotic that would help you poop, so
No. Right.
You weren't aware of that part,
right.
So...
pooping is so important.
It is important.
Oh my gosh.
It's very important.
I feel so good when
you should do it if you can once or twice a day at least. But no, I would say to everybody who's listening, if you're going 3 to 4 days without having a bowel movement at all, that's a problem. You should go see your gastroenterologist.
The carnivore diet people would be really mad.
Change your diet.
They'd be like, "You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong." And that's the thing is you find it's like you said, it is a very much all about what you can do as a human, right? What diet works best for you, but also not looking at things like diets.
Yes, not looking at it as a restriction. Looking at is this going to feed the processes that my body needs to function properly to make ATP, which is our energy that drives all of our processes.
What's ATP stand for?
Adenosine triphosphate.
Okay.
So that's the molecule that gets made when carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are broken down into glucose, and then the end of that cycle, we're producing energy, which is our ATP molecule. So from anytime we are thinking about food, if we're thinking about it in the most nutrient dense possible, once again, that goes back to also your poop.
Yeah.
If you're having diarrhea on a regular basis, then that's not good either.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're losing a lot of electrolytes that way, and that can be more dehydrating.
Yeah. What about water? How much water should we drink a day?
Well, I mean, obviously it's different for everybody
depending on how active you are.
Yes, depending on how active you are, or if you're not used to drinking that much at all. So if you come to me and your true body weight, let's say, is 160 pounds, maybe half of that in ounces. Mm-hmm. So 20, if you're 160 pounds, 80 ounces of water a day.
Right.
But let's say you come to me and you don't ever drink water.
Yeah. Let's say I come to you and I drink 6 Dr. Peppers a day, a Starbucks coffee in the morning. What would you do?
So I would be asking you, how much of this can you give up?
Okay.
In the day,
sure.
Right? Because it's not up to me, it's up to you.
Right.
Can you give up 2 of them a day and turn that into water instead?
Or even like a sparkling water is like an alternative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's not about taking it all away from you and cutting cold turkey, because very few people can do that. Remember? It's about slowly changing the habits that you have had and have formed all these years into thinking now about everything that you touch and put in your mouth. Is this really doing something good for me? Now I can make an educated, informed choice on, do I want to put my body, do I want to give myself diabetes, or do I want to be at my best health?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that. Like, do I want to give myself diabetes? Yeah. And I'm like, well, no, duh.
Oh, yeah. Or
but
do
like,
I
you're on your path. You better watch out.
Do you want to have high blood pressure? Well, then this is the repercussions.
Right.
Do you want to have high cholesterol? And that scares, people can get scared before it's too late and then, do better.
Yeah.
There is no best.
Right.
When it comes to diet, there's so many diets out there that are very high in nutrient density, like the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet.
Yeah. What's the DASH diet?
The DASH diet was a diet created for people that had hypertension. So it's a very common diet that's used in clinical research too. So it emphasizes like plant foods and, fish like omega-3s.
Yeah.
Whole plant-based diet. You have people that are vegetarian, that are vegan, but with all these diets, to me, I've always considered a whole plant-based diet with, I wouldn't say a whole plant-based diet, a whole foods diet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
With high plant foods.
Sure.
Right? So whole foods, your good quality meats, because you're getting your vitamin B12, your iron, and many of your other B vitamins from the meat.
Which, especially for women, I think I wanted to express that too. It is vital for us to have those nutrients. And I do agree that it needs to come from like grass-fed beef sources or really, really good sources. Better quality. But like women who cut out meat altogether, they sometimes struggle with a lot of things.
Yeah. Some of the common signs is if you're lacking in B12 from a lab, when you're looking at a lab, is the complete blood count, your red blood cell size, it's much larger than normal. So we call that a macrocytic anemia. You're lacking B12 and folate.
Yeah.
And, typically that's the first thing I go to is talk about diet. You'll often find that conventional doctors will prescribe like a B12 shot.
Yeah.
But I prefer, let's see if we can get it fixed with your diet first before we
before we supplement.
Pay money to get a shot.
For something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then is your body breaking that meat down? Do you have enough digestive enzymes, enough hydrochloric acid that when you eat that protein that it's being broken down into the amino acids, and the B12 is being able to get pulled into the cell by the intrinsic factor that is what helps bring it into the cell. So yes, the quality of our meat, I think, is something to pay attention to if you can afford that in your diet.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's easier. It's all about priorities, right? Like, I could buy half of a grass-fed cow for like $500 and feed my whole family for a year.
Yeah.
Yes. If I have an extra freezer, which, the freezer's not cheap. And some people live in an apartment. But it's like, I would willingly cut out certain things so that I could afford these things because I know how important it is.
Yes. I am the exact same way.
Yeah.
Once you learn and understand, I think that makes, I won't go to a movie. I will make sure I can buy this better quality milk for my daughter.
Right.
So
also movies are expensive.
Right.
And Netflix is real cheap. Let's be real. And I have a huge TV at home. So what do we need that for? So, okay. I want to do another like example. So like I said earlier, let's say I come to you. I've never worked out in my life. Or maybe I have tried a couple times and failed. I drink a lot of soda. I drink Starbucks in the morning. Let's say maybe I don't eat breakfast, but I eat lunch and it's normally like a sandwich and chips. And then when I go home and eat dinner, it's like a pasta, right? Like if I was that type of client, what would you say to me, and why is that lifestyle or that diet or that way of eating bad for me?
So the first thing is, I now realize that a lot of the food that you're eating is ultra processed. But
like we live in America, so.
Right. A lot of things are ultra processed, right?
Yeah.
But the more ultra processed our diet is, the more nutrient deficiencies that we have.
Right.
So my first goal is to educate them on why. right? What do these nutrients do to you, right? How they feed our brain and allow the different like dopamine and serotonin, and how they allow all these different neurotransmitters, our hormones, to be made. These are the vitamins and minerals that it requires. If this step is lacking if let's say you don't have enough B5 in your diet, right? So that's going to slow that wheel down, the energy cycle of producing as much energy as you can optimally, because you're missing that B5.
Yeah.
And it's not going to really turn at its best unless you get that B5 in your diet. You can supplement all you want.
Yeah.
You're not guaranteed that that's even being absorbed either.
And like, it's funny because Joe Rogan was talking about this the other day. Somebody was on his podcast and they were talking about how they take their vitamins first thing in the morning just with water, and they usually don't eat breakfast. And he's like, listen, if you supplement and you don't eat food, your body is like, hey, where the heck is all this stuff coming from? We're just going to pee it out because it looks like it's extra. So you're spending all this money for supplement that could potentially just go in the toilet, but also like zinc. Zinc is not something that is just easily absorbed immediately. And by itself, it needs like a, what is it called? It's like a binder.
Copper.
Something that's like a, I can't remember what the word is, but something that helps to bind it so your body can absorb it.
Yes.
But like, get some from food too.
Yes.
You know, try to eat some foods that are rich in zinc so that when your body's digesting it and processing it itself, you're getting those nutrients from it.
Right. And even so, that they also recommend that you take your vitamins with food, because that food may have some of the other vitamins that your supplements work in conjunction with.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing just works alone in our body.
Right.
It is so integrated. Without vitamin K, vitamin D maybe can't be taken up into the cell.
Right.
So all of these vitamins and minerals are so important.
Yeah.
So that's where I really stress nutrient density. And now, okay, you came to me, both of your meals there's very little nutrients.
Right.
How can we add, let's say to your pasta, how can we add a bunch of nutrients to that meal?
Okay.
So you can still eat your pasta, but we're also feeding your gut, feeding your brain, and giving your body what it needs.
Yeah. And hopefully your digestive system, because dear Lord, that would be terrible.
So we're going to talk about options.
Okay.
What are the vegetables that you like that you can add to this pasta?
I like potatoes. Just kidding.
You're
not giving me a lot to work with.
We'll go with the green vegetables or the non-starchy vegetables. And then, so that's one way to increase nutrient density.
Okay.
For lunch, the other part is you're not eating enough.
Okay.
So because you're not eating enough, you're probably still really lacking in those nutrients.
Yeah.
If you're just doing a sandwich and chips, if you think a sandwich is maybe like maybe 300 calories, 400 calories, depending on how big that sandwich is.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get a really big sandwich and it can be a lot of calories.
Yeah, like 1,000 or 1,100.
I'm thinking about 2 slices of bread.
Sure.
So for that person, that's not near enough.
Yeah.
And what happens is now your blood sugar starts to drop. And now your body's going to start foraging for food.
Right.
And you're going to go to whatever is convenient because you need it right now.
Snacks, Dr. Pepper, whatever.
Cookies.
Right.
And by that time, your blood sugar has dropped so far that it's like you feel like you need more than what you really need.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get that pick me up like right now, but it might take 20 minutes for that to get into your bloodstream and for your body to, come back up. But you've overloaded in calories now.
And in those 20 minutes,
Yes.
I mean, I've already had like 4,000 calories worth of cookies.
Yes.
Yeah. Story of my life.
So, yeah. And eating foods that are high satiating can help to reduce the amount of episodes that you have of your blood sugar crashing, right? So if at every meal you have a good source of protein, I like to say like half of my plate is vegetables or color.
Yeah. Vegetables
of all color, and then a quarter of it is protein and maybe a quarter of it is things like a potato or rice or sweet potato. And as long as you can stick to eating that way at least 80% of the time, you are winning.
The 80-20 rule.
Yeah, and I really like that rule because you're not so restrictive that it's accountability where you're not so restrictive that you can't have it at all.
Yeah.
But you get excited for the day that you can enjoy it.
Yes. And it's not every day, because then you feel bogged down and loaded down. You feel crappy.
Yes. And that's why that 80-20 rule is a good accountability tool.
Yeah.
No, 80% of the time, that means maybe only 2 days out of the week, 2 meals out of the week I've given myself because I have done so well and I have held on to my discipline and I've been accountable to myself.
Right.
And I deserve this and I earned it.
Right.
So that's kind of the method I like to use. And ever since 2017, I've been eating very intuitively.
Okay.
And it's been the best relationship that I have with food in my, since my early bodybuilding days. And I live by that rule.
I was going to say, what does your typical diet look like? I'm sure it changes a lot, but
yeah. So like for example, this week, I'm the kind of person I can make one big large meal and it'll last me for like 3-4 days and I can eat on that for like every lunch every day.
Yeah.
I am a really busy person, being in school full time, working full time. I have a 4-year-old, so I have her full time. As a mom, you're always looking for ways to have as much food available, so it gives you a few days of rest before you have to cook again.
Yes.
So I will make like soups or casseroles or stir fries.
Yeah.
Because you can
Stir fries, so good.
You can load so many of your fruits and vegetables. You can put fruits in there if you want, but you
mostly
can
vegetables.
Mostly all different colors of vegetables and a protein source. I always put in there. So I have my meat and I have all those nutrients, and then it's the decision of, do I want pasta or do I want rice? Coming from the background that I came from, I love rice. I eat rice all the time.
Yeah.
White rice is my staple for energy and for carbs. So I put a lot of stuff over rice, chili over rice, soup over rice, like
so good.
Beans over rice.
Yeah.
You can do so much with rice.
I ate kidney beans the other day, just plain. They were so good. Like I straight up ate them out of the can, rinsed them off, ate them. And I was like, I'm so surprised by how delicious this is. Which like before, and I think the thing too that I'm noticing is that my palate is changing a lot as I'm getting older. I'm 34. So like I know that when I eat something healthy, that my body actually feel like when I eat something healthy and I feel better, like I look forward to eating healthy because I feel better. Like it's almost like, because they say that your eyes are not just your eyes, it's an extension of your brain.
Yes.
Like when my eyes see the good, nourishing food, it's like, oh yes, like we know we're going to feel better because we're going to eat this food.
Right.
And which is like also mental for me too. Like I was looking forward to eating good all week. Like, and because I had this plan, I stayed on track better, like all of it. But yeah, I ate kidney beans, just straight kidney beans, and they were so good. And I was
you
so
can make
surprised.
chili with them.
Yes, or anything like, and just eat them by themselves as a carb source because they are pretty carb dense
And iron.
Yeah,
they're very high in iron and protein,
which they say you should
source.
eat kidney beans when you're on your period or whatever, when you're
because of the
menstruating.
iron.
Yeah, and it was
that's a
like
good point.
It was like kidney beans, weird duck, shellfish, and pork was like the recommended protein sources while I was like menstruating. And I know the whole is so interesting, but I'm like, I'm just going with it. We're just going to see where it goes.
Definitely take a peek into it.
I know. I can't wait to send it to you. I'm curious on your thoughts, especially for someone who trains all the time. And if anybody else wants this, if you're listening, I'll send it to you too, of course. But it came with like a recommended exercise guide too, like when you should be putting in those hard, strenuous workouts versus when you shouldn't be.
Yes.
The only thing where I was conflicted is like, okay, wait, but I've gained a pound every day on this damn scale. Like I'm gonna need to slow down, because they say that when you're menstruating and when you're in your follicular phase or your luteal phase and your menstruation period phase, that you shouldn't be doing like the HIIT or the hard like lifting and stuff like that. You should be doing more yoga, more Pilates, more walking, more, gentle workouts, stuff like that. But I'm like, okay, but we're carb loading right now, and I'm also not like working out really hard, so I'm gonna gain weight. But that's neither here nor there, just for me. But I just thought, I was like, yes, our body probably needs that for like restoration purposes because we're on our period. But like also I'm not trying to get fat again. Like I'm trying to optimize here. But
well, if they are increasing the carbs, are they keeping the calories the same? Are calories
There's
equated?
no calories. That's the thing is like, that's kind of up to the person, you know, like if they just kind of give you the chart of like, hey, these are the foods that you need to eat. So it's up to me. But for the first time where I was trying it, I'm trying to get to the point where I don't live, eat, and breathe by my macros, and where I do eat more intuitively. Like, what do I feel like? Do I feel hungry? And not necessarily, I don't know if you've ever heard of Stephanie Buttermore, where she did her all-in thing, like where she was like so malnourished, kind of like what you mentioned about when you were training and you were leaching that calcium from your bones. She was so malnourished, and she's getting her doctorate in something, but it's not nutrition. I don't remember what it is, but it's something like in science. So it's like either kinesiology or something like that. Okay. I can't remember what she's doing her research on, but she said, you know, I just had this extreme hunger forever. She was like, I was so lean all the time. Her body fat percent was between 10 and 13% for an extended period of time. Where like when you get that low, you're typically training for a bodybuilding show. She just lived that low. So like she would have cheat days that would be like 5, 10, 15,000 calorie days, and she would still not be satisfied. So she basically did this program where she went all in and she just ate everything in sight for like almost a year. And her body eventually balanced itself out, and she got to a point where she was no longer just chronically hungry. And I didn't suffer from that kind of eating disorder. Like I was more of like I get to indulge and then remove it and pretend like it didn't happen. But she had more of like maybe not anorexia, but like trainorexia, you know, like where she ate just enough to sustain her super low body fat percentage. So I thought that was interesting too. But yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been on the side of, I've been just a little bit bigger. I've had a little more body fat percentage, which I think a lot of women kind of like stay in this area. And we get so frustrated because we don't know where to go, don't know what to do. And like for me, you know, even if I were to hire a coach or something, like I worked with a trainer before. I had a trainer for a long time, but it was like, what is my goal? I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you need to figure it out. I don't know. Where the fuck do I go to figure it out?
I really believe the first goal that everybody should have is looking at your habits. Right? Because if you don't change any of the things that have made you get to this place and you've been stuck in this place for a long time, then even if you add some training and it's going to change maybe a little, but maybe not as much as you had wanted it to change. And then you get frustrated again, and then you start spinning those wheels again. So I think if you start with looking at what are the habits that I have that I know I can improve on. So if I'm not drinking a lot of water, which your body does need, you know, good water for hydration. If you're not drinking any water at all, maybe I start with 1 glass in the morning. That's one habit that I can add to my daily. It's not expensive. It's not timely. It's not costing you a lot of time. It's very simple. You can just add that. And then slowly work up from there. I feel a little better. Let me add one at lunch. Let me add one at dinner. Yeah. It doesn't have to be
baby steps, like legit baby steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have a really good friend of mine, that I train. She just wanted to get into the habit of training. Yeah. You know, that's how she started. And I said, we can worry about nutrition later. Let's just start creating habits and give you structure. Yeah. So if you can start there, just kind of look at your life. And then if you want to journal it, I think that's a great way to do it, or write it down and look at that every single time you wake up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, it's right there in your face. Okay. Yeah. And then just repeat it and then do that day after day. Here's what my goals for the day. Now at the end of the day, you sit down and you look and reflect, what were my wins today? Right. What can I do better tomorrow? It's not what did I do bad? It's what were my wins and what can I improve on tomorrow? So it's not constantly looking at yourself, oh, I did this bad. Right. No, you didn't do it bad. Right. You did your best at that day, at that time. Could you do better? Sure. So let's work on trying to do better. What can we do better? That's a good point. So
I was thinking about that, like when we think about food, right? Because it's always like, I ate bad food, or I ate so bad. And it's like, did you really eat bad, or did you just like eat something that didn't make you feel that good.
Yeah.
You know?
And maybe didn't give you the most nutrients that you could have had that day.
Right.
And that's truly, if we stop looking at ourselves without that self-worth, right, we continue to be in this perpetual cycle. So start looking at what you did have wins, and then what can I do better tomorrow?
What can I improve upon?
Right. Yeah. Improve. Where's my growth? And that's what it's all about. It's about growth.
Yeah.
You know, we can sit here and talk about all the bad things we did in our relationship. Well, I should have done this. I should have done that. But really, I'm looking at it as I had so much growth in my life in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
I wish I could have told my 20-year-old self this, you know?
For real.
So that's growth.
She wasted so much of her time. Jeez.
And that's why nutrition. And so then once we figure that out, nutrition then is the next step. Like, this is why nutrient-dense foods are going to help you build this muscle and allow your body to be able to utilize the fat that it has as energy. So as long as we can, then we get that figured out. And then, of course, okay, are you showing up to your workouts that you set for yourself? If you are seeing a trainer, and you know what? There's a lot of people that do so much better with a trainer to get their workouts. They need an accountability coach. Yeah. Even if they know what to do, they need somebody to help them. You know, it's not holding their hand, but it's making them, hey, you set this goal, so this is on you. Yeah. Come on, let's go.
And for me, I loved having the schedule, right?
Yes.
Or the calendar or the plan, just like with the diet. Like, I love looking at something for the week and saying, okay, these are my days. This is what I need to accomplish this week. And that way I can get that done.
Yes.
You know?
But if you're always so tired, the last thing you want to do is sit down and write up a goal too, right? Because you just want to numb your mind.
See you around. I just want to go to sleep.
So then start feeding your body with the foods that are going to give you the energy, then you can sit down and your brain can operate and say, you know what, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
So
from your perspective too, from a scientific, I don't know where we're at for time. It's almost 2. Wow. We've been talking for an hour and a half. Wow. That's so cool. So from your perspective though, so we'll end after this little piece, but why is the keto diet not optimal? Why do we need carbohydrates? Why do we need fat? Why do we need protein? You're the expert. Mm-hmm. If I was coming to you, I'd be like, well, how come I can't do keto for the rest of my life? Or how come I can't be a vegan for the rest of my life? Or how come I can't do this? And it's not like those diets aren't attainable. And I know that everybody, this is me getting on the not molecular level, but more into the details and to the nitty gritty. But there's so much influence, like you said, coming from every avenue, right? Well, this diet is best, or this diet is best, or this is best, or this is best. And I've personally found that a whole foods diet, like you said, is probably optimal for most people. But mayonnaise is really good. Peanut butter is really good. These fat sources are really good and not highly satiating, but very appetizing foods. So you want to eat more highly palatable foods. Yes. So and like you said, the 80-20 rule, we keep it in moderation or whatever, or you really feel like you did earn that. But why is it necessary for me to eat certain things?
Yeah, so our body breaks down carbs, proteins, and fats, and we have what we call metabolic flexibility. That means in times of, let's say, hunger, we could switch over to ketosis, and in times in hunger or famine, and in times of when there's food, we can burn glucose for fuel.
And ketosis, for those who are listening, for those who don't know what that is, that's where your body switches from burning carbs for fuel to burning fats for fuel.
Right. It goes into...
And ketones are then released when you're in ketosis, and your body, that's what happens when your body is using fat for fuel.
Right. It uses the ketones to make the energy instead of the glucose molecules. And I mean, this actually, so the ketogenic diet was created for a medical reason.
For epilepsy.
Right. For children that had epileptic seizures, they found that the ketogenic diet helped to reduce the number of episodes
But did it say in there that you could eat bricks of cream cheese? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything you see on Pinterest is cream cheese this, cheese this,
and what were the fats that were used in that research in the first place to make it the ketogenic?
Right.
And so, yes, when most people think of ketogenic, they think, well, I can have bacon and butter or, bacon and eggs in the morning.
I'd love to every day.
But are you truly in ketosis?
Right.
You know,
and you don't know if you're really excuse me, I'm chewing on ice. You don't know until you're like checking your blood or checking your breath. But like even when you're checking your breath, like that lumen, that
yeah, I remember you talking about that.
and then of course my husband sends me Lane Norton's video about it. He's like, bro, just because your breath says you're giving off like what is
so
it?
much CO2
butyrate or whatever.
Yeah, butyrate.
Yeah, that you doesn't mean you're in ketosis. Like, let's be real.
That's true.
It's another device for them to sell and for them to push on influencers.
Yeah. So when it comes to the ketogenic diet, my thoughts is that it doesn't give you enough of the nutrients that you find in fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
So only 20%. It is very low
on fruits and vegetables.
And I would rather see your intake much higher.
Yeah.
Because again, we want to feed the gut, the short chain fatty acids. So from those short chain of fatty acids, what's made is butyrate, acetate, and succinate. Those are the things that are made, when we feed our foods, those prebiotic rich foods, vegetables, fruits, fermented foods too. Fermented foods are a really good source.
What is that called? Kimchi? A sauerkraut?
Yes. Then pickles. Yeah, fermented.
Pickles.
Yeah. So that's why I say it's not... When somebody comes in and says they want to follow a diet, okay, I'm here to help you follow that diet. And when it doesn't work for you, I'm here to also educate you and letting you know, well, here's why it might not be working for you, and give you suggestions of what we can do then. What different can we implement to try to get the diet to be the diet that it's going to work for you.
Sure.
I know at the end, I don't really like using the word diet because it is so misused in a negative way. A diet just basically means, in general, what you grew up eating. Right. That's your diet. It's your cultural way of eating. But it's been used to market for weight loss.
Lots of things.
It can have a negative connotation in your brain.
Oh, it's automatic diet. I mean, how many women have you heard say, I'm on a diet?
Yeah. So what if I were to say, you know what, I switched my way of eating to eating more nutrient dense foods and I feel so much better. Right. Then
I'm trying to include more whole foods.
Yeah. And that's where we start. Those are our goals. Right. I just had a client start about 2 weeks ago, and same thing with her. I said, okay, I don't think it's for the stress she has in her life. She's getting her master's. She's a full-time counselor in a school. I said, the stress that you have, you could burn out quick.
Yes.
If you try to do this cold turkey.
Yes.
So let's start with the habits that got you there. Right. And slowly taking away the things that might not feed your body and put in foods that are. And there's this misconception too that if you eat too much fruit, you're eating too much sugar. Yeah. And when somebody comes to me and their diet has all been ultra processed foods and soda, you eat all the fruit you want. Yeah. Because you're
like, listen, blackberries didn't make you fat.
No.
Okay.
Right. So if we take away that candy bar and you want to have a big bowl of fruit, you're going to get full pretty fast. Yes. Because it's so full of fiber.
It's funny because that's like where I was at last week. So they were like, on the chart or whatever, it says a lot of berries. So it was like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and grapes and something else. And I was so in my head about, all I had for breakfast was coffee. And then I had like I had a big package of blueberries and a package of blackberries. And I was so in my head about eating all these berries. And I was like, first of all, bitch, berries are like low glycemic, so calm down. Second of all, I was so fulfilled after eating those berries because of all the fiber, and I felt so much better. And my energy was still pretty steady. I didn't feel like a huge rush because it's attached to all the fiber in the berries.
And they're high in antioxidants. So
it was like brain food.
Yes. Yeah. And so antioxidants bind to free radicals that our body makes and helps to remove that from our body. And a lot of those colored berries, all the different colors, purple, blue, blueberries, strawberries, they're some of the most nutrient-dense foods that are low in calories. Yeah. So if you put those two packages together, 200 calories.
Maybe.
Like if that.
Yeah.
So it's super low in calories, and yet you're winning when it comes to nutrient density.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my approach and my philosophy is if we, as I've seen over and over again, when they go cold turkey, they last for maybe a month, 2 months. And if I'm going to be a nutrition educator, I have to teach you how to sustain.
Yes.
And then how to be able to get your whole family on board that
implementable practices that actually
work
stick
for you and your family.
Yeah.
So it's a very personalized approach that I take with everyone. Everybody's different. I know you come to me, you've been an athlete and you're really good at following rules.
Yeah.
I know I could probably be a little bit more strict with you.
Yeah.
Because that's just your nature and that's the kind of structure you need. But, everybody is so different.
Yeah.
And that comes with experience. I've been in this training environment since 2006. But prior to that, I was always in the bodybuilding community and in the gym and around all these people. So I was around those that are having this experience. And you just learn that it's not this one way. And even you as a trainer and a coach cannot have biases that are going to steer this person to one ideology or one way.
Yep.
That doesn't make you a good trainer.
No.
You have to have an open mindset, really understand this person's background, where they came from, and that comes with developing a trusting relationship with your client. But, it comes from, listen, there's no judgment with me. We all have our own story and our own history of how we fought battles. I've fought some pretty severe battles in my life from all my childhood, but once I was able to tackle that mentally, it leaches over into your life of even eating.
Yeah. Everything impacts everything. It's just like your diet. Like it's all inclusive. Mm-hmm. Your mental health is all inclusive. Your diet is all inclusive. Your training is all inclusive. Your sleep is so important.
Yes.
Like
sleep.
I'm so cranky if I get less than 7 hours.
Me too.
If I can get 9, I'm on fire.
Yes. But and when for some reason in our culture, that is looked at as you're such a badass because you only slept
4 hours of sleep.
4 hours, and how can you operate like that?
I can't.
And that's actually
my body
the wrong
literally
way.
starts shutting down,
and you will age a lot faster.
Yeah, no, thank
by
you.
doing that.
I'm trying to reduce my 11s. Thank you very much.
Young people out there listening, I promise you, when you hit your 30s and 40s, your sleep matters.
Yes, shit. My sleep mattered in my 20s. I'm not ready for. I just think about having another baby and the lack of sleep that comes with that. I'm so pumped.
You got me. Give me a call. I'll come babysit.
Oh man, so excited. So if anybody wants to work with you, and where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I haven't gotten on any other social media platforms only because I'm so busy with
everybody's
school.
on Instagram and Facebook.
So
I think you're good there.
My Instagram handle is at ToughFitFaye, TUFFITFAYE, or you can find me on Facebook, Miriam Whitfield.
Perfect. And then I will actually in the YouTube video, for those who are watching, we'll have your handle, your Instagram handle as like your name. Across the screen so they can find you there. And then I'll put your information in the show notes too, like maybe your email address or something if they want to come find you that way.
Yes.
But thank you so much for coming. And honestly, I would love it if you could come back maybe in a couple months and we talk about, whatever. But I would love it if you could be like a recurring guest, because I think that if we talk more about health, nutrition, the holistic approach to everything. Like I would love to have you on with like maybe a mental health professional.
Yes.
And so we could talk about, and me, I'm a guinea pig. I just use my life for everything. We can just dissect me for anybody who's not as transparent as me and put themselves out there. But I know there's a lot of women that struggle with this, and I'm not the exception from that either. I struggle with it too. And I think that's why I want to advocate so much for it, because it's so important for us as women, not only to like come together and to help each other, but to like remove the stigma from talking about this shit. Yes. Like we all struggle with it.
Yes.
I struggle with mental health. I struggle with my diet. I struggle with, motivation. I struggle with everything. So it's like, why not share my struggles? And if it helps one person, then I'm winning.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I just recently for the first time in my life, disclosed in a group that I'm in. It's Merging Vets with Players. It's all professional athletes and combat vets. We have this group. So I was raised in a cult. So I had a lot of severe punishment in a cult. So that's a whole nother story. But I spent my first 23 years of my life
talk about that.
And I was in denial until after my 40th. I think until after I turned 40, that I was actually raised in a cult. Because I truly didn't understand. I was told all my life that those people were liars and this is not a cult. But it was a cult where a lot of fear-based punishment happened. So I got, with electric cattle prod shockers, you get shocked if you're not in the right position, getting beat with electric wires. And I was put in these big 55-gallon drums and being made to stay there for 10, 12, 14 hours at a time because was so-called bad. So a lot of these things in my life led me, and this is why I say it's important that the mental part of this journey is included, because these traumatic events are the things that caused me to have the eating disorders and a lot of these issues.
Your coping mechanism is your eating disorder because you haven't addressed the trauma from that shit.
Right. And so now I've just said it again publicly.
You're coming back next week so we can discuss this cult.
But it's really, it's a really important conversation to have for sure.
Yes.
And even if it's painful and it makes you cry, you have to cry through it.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
So I would love to come back and talk about it.
Wow. That's crazy. But also so inspiring because look where you are now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're getting your doctorate.
I feel like I'm a force for other women.
Absolutely.
I can now be a much better, because even on that side, the PTSD from it, right?
It's bad.
If we're not feeding our brain the nutrients, it's going to set that spiral into motion so much worse. And so we have to feed our brain to even be able to deal with it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And say it's okay to cry.
Yes.
Don't hold it back.
Right. Which also plays through with raising our children.
Yes.
Which is why it's so important as women that we prioritize discussing these things and fixing ourselves, because we are the ultimate example. And the way we parent, or the way our parents parented, which Jesus, in your case, oh my gosh. But the way our parents parented, we carried that generational practice, right? But I think that our generation, hopefully and luckily, we're recognizing, okay, we have to break this generational bullshit and make sure that we tell our kids, hey, you don't have to give Uncle Larry a hug. This is your body and it's and if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to, you know, whereas our parents were give him a hug and a kiss, make sure, whatever. And with so many other things, my mom would tell me all the time, it's fine, just eat the cookie. It's fine. And I'm but what you don't understand is if I eat the cookie, I'm going to eat all 12 cookies. Yeah. I can't just eat the cookie.
And you know that there's a big part of that on the mental health. I'm not a mental health therapist, but you do a lot of studying of neurology and of the brain when you're in the nutrition field. Yeah. Is your brain just could be wired differently, but your parents didn't recognize that. Right. And so you're now labeled as a bad child or a child who doesn't ever listen. And yet it was just because your brain was wired differently and they weren't educated to know how to
No, instead you're punished or chastised or cast out or whatever, or made to feel like there's something wrong with you. When in reality, it's why my daughter was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and I think it was just ADHD, but so I have to understand and do my best to educate myself, not just put a label on her and say, this is the reason why you do everything. It's just more of a, what's going to help you in this moment kind of situation where that's been a whole learning lesson for myself. But then the more I talk to her, I'm shit, I think I have the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. And that's so true. The more you want to know how to help her with this condition, the more you become very aware and knowledgeable that they're not really doing this out of spite and hate. No. It's because there's something going on in their brain that the chemical messengers are off and it's causing her to react this way, which, that's why I say how you eat matters, right? If you're not getting enough.
It's so important.
Yes. You're not getting enough
Which, and like my husband looks at everything in a macro perspective. He's like, well, goldfish aren't that bad macro wise. And I'm like, motherfucker, look at those ingredients.
Yes.
Like this matters.
Yeah.
We can't just look at the nutrition facts. We have to look at the ingredients, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think for parents out there too, you ask, okay, what about the children, right? Because how do we teach the children when their palate has already been established?
right.
You didn't really start understanding this until your children are, say, 7 or 8 years old, and they've already established their palate and
chicken
trying
nuggets
to get
and French
them
fries.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to derail from that.
Right. So how do you get your children to, slowly move over to liking foods that are more nutrient dense? And again, that just comes with educating your children. Hey, this is why. But then what are the things? Let them choose those foods.
And
to
also
make.
involve them in the process.
Involve
like, hey,
them. Exactly.
I'm trying to do better for my body because mom wants to be here for when your kids are born and when they're growing up, and I want to be healthy and I want to be involved. So like, tonight we're going to make dinner. We're going to try a couple new things. You can try them. If you like them, great. If you don't like them, it's okay. Maybe we can prepare them a different way next time.
Yeah.
And I know for me, the involving Chloe in the process of like cooking dinner, cooking food, having fun, making it an event, her setting the table, that just makes her feel like she's a part of it.
Yes.
And she's bought in.
Yeah.
So she's more likely to want to try those foods versus me being like, hey, I cooked your beets. You have to eat these.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and you could even give them options of vegetables. Hey, I have these vegetables. Which one do you want to eat or try tonight?
Yes.
So you're kind of putting it on them and letting them take ownership in that process. And
whereas like our parents were like, well, this is shut up and eat it.
That was my parents.
Eat it. Yeah.
Yes. That was
too damn bad. You get no choices.
Yeah.
But it's like if we empower them to make those decisions for themselves, then they just feel so much more empowered to make those decisions going forward
in life
and with their friends.
Yes.
Like, it's so it's so involved. It's so,
and it's teaching you communication too in relationships. So there's just so much we could go, but
for hours. I feel like we could go for hours. That's why you have to come back
on the nutrition topic.
No, we're going on every rabbit hole next time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Seriously,
having me.
Thank you so much for coming. You were so wonderful. You had no reason to be nervous. I promise. You were great. And next time you'll be even greater.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Like I said, I have to face my fears. Even if I have a fear, I have to face it. And
dude, that's so
I really enjoy.
I gotta do the shit that scares me.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
So
story of my life. Eating carbs. So scary. Well, thank you so much for listening to Big Girl Pants. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email at biggirlpantspod@gmail.com. Please follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And as always, thank you for listening. Bye.